comments and suggestions coming in through the chat box. Would appreciate that. And for now, we are going to mute all of you to minimize the feedback in the background. When you're given the opportunity to speak, kindly remember to unmute yourself. Welcome again. We'll start straight off with our first speaker, Dr. Gloria Esilfi with the University of Ghana. She's a food scientist, post-harvest food safety specialist, and I think she has a presentation. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Sheila. So Dr. Margaret Owusu and myself, we came up with this presentation, and we are looking at how you assess and monitor the risk along the fruit and vegetable value chains. And of course, we are looking at Ghana, and the theme for this business meeting is the role of in the horticultural value chain. So as we are the first people who are starting this presentation, we thought we would start up with a little bit of the basics. So we wanted to look at what food safety is. And food safety is a measure of the risk to health and safety that is posed by handling and consuming fruits and vegetables in Ghana. Again, I'm looking at food safety as pertains to this horticultural value chain in Ghana. So we talked about the risk to health. Now, what is risk? Risk is the potency of the hazard multiplied by the exposure. So for instance, if you were eating contaminated lettuce, the more contaminated lettuce you ate, the more the likelihood of you getting a foodborne illness. So the risk, what basically we are saying is that the risk would increase if the exposure to the hazards also increase. So since we talked about hazards again, we wanted to quickly go over what a hazard is. And the foodborne hazard, as defined by Codex, is any biological, physical, or chemical agent in a food that is likely to cause adverse health effects. So what are some of the hazards that are available? What are some of the hazards of concern when you are talking about food safety? There are, like we said earlier, the biological, chemical, and physical. The biological, you're looking at bacteria, you're looking at fungi, viruses, parasites, and the prion, what caused the crazy foodborne illnesses in Europe with the mad cow disease. We also have the chemicals, so we have the pesticides, the food additives, we have the naturally occurring toxicants, the mycotoxins, which aflatoxin is the one that is of highest concern for us, and then we have allergens. Then we come to the physical ones. We have metals, glass, stones, wood, etc. Now we look at how hazards are introduced into foods. These hazards can be introduced into foods through contaminated water, the food handlers, the animals, soil, surfaces, agrochemicals, etc. These are just a few of the hazards, how they can be introduced into the food. So what as a task force we can do, and what is of concern looking at the food safety along the value chain, is that we have to actually identify what the sources of contamination is, the measures to actually reduce this contamination, and also we able to monitor the risk factors, because if you know the risk factors and you monitor them, then you'll be able to control them, and then we will reduce the food safety issues that the consumer would encounter. So the first thing we think we have to do would be to identify the key contaminants along the fruit and vegetable value chains in Ghana. Now, we do have some research that has been done, but everything has been done in different portions. So it would be good to actually sit down and find what the key contaminants are, the ones that we have to work on. And if we know these contaminants, we also have to assess and identify what the risk factors are. Now, if we know all these ones, we would also have to know what interventions are being used by these farmers, by retailers, by consumers. And then if we know what they are doing, if there's a need to improve on these ones, we will do that. Of course, you find out that I've seen videos of people actually, retailers, washing their produce with wastewater. Now, in their mind, they are washing it so that it is good for the consumer to eat. But then, of course, we do know the issues that are associated with eating vegetables that are washed with contaminated water. So we want to know what low-cost interventions they are using, and based on what we find out, we'll be able to improve on that one. Now, when we know that, then we would come up with some intervention information. So we come up with posters with all the good things that have to be done. And then when that is done, then we would monitor the risk factors after they have been adopted by these value chain actors. So these are the things that we think we have to do as a food safety task force. Finally, all this that we are doing because we want to ensure that the consumer is gets safe food to consume. And so we also think that after we are doing our part as the food safety task force, the consumer would also have to do his or her own part to ensure that the food they take in is healthy and safe. Now, what can the consumer do? We think that the first thing the consumer can do is that if you are able to, you try to buy from a trusted source. So that being the case, if you know this supermarket or this vendor is a good, but you see the way they handle their produce and you think they are to be trusted, it's good for you to buy your produce from this trusted source. Another one is that you check for your changes in color, texture, smell, etc. before you buy the produce. If you do this, then there's a likelihood that you are getting the food that is has less risk associated with it. Then the most important aspect, if you get your food and you go home, the most important thing is to wash your fruits well and vegetables well under running water before you consume them. You can wash with brine, depending if it's vegetables, you can wash it with brine, or you can wash it with vinegar, chlorine, citric acid, whatever you have that is being, what would I say? That is a standard, has been recommended for usage. You can use those ones. Again, you have to use clean packaging. If you buy clean, you don't put clean food in dirty stuff. So that's also something the consumer can do. And then finally, you have to avoid temperature abuse. So if you put lettuce in the fridge, you don't take it out and put it out again and put it in. You put everything at the right temperature, and that's also going to help the consumer. So basically, this is just a quick let everyone know what can be done and what we are about to also do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gloria Esilfi from the University of Ghana. Food poses a lot of risk, and so thanks for sharing some of the risk factors and how we can minimize these in our daily routines. Thank you. You saw in the agenda that we would finish up with the speakers and then have time for a bit longer discussion. So please hold your horses. If you have questions and comments, let's keep them. And when it's time, we will allow you to share your experience as well. Next, we have to discuss food safety and pesticide use regulation. We have also from the University of Ghana, Dr. Ken Fenning.
Thank you very much, Madam Sheila, and thank you to my listeners. Yeah, I'm doing this presentation with my colleague, Mr. Francis Sam from Melcom Limited, and both of us are part of the Food Safety Regulatory Committee. Yeah, we'll just give you a brief overview of some of the institutions that are mandated to handle food safety and pesticide regulatory issues. We have FDA, Food and Drug Authority, who endorses food safety regulation and standards in Ghana. We also have the Ghana Standard Authority, which sets the food safety standard and also conducts a pesticide residue analysis, which is quite important in dealing with food safety issues. We have EPA, who is in charge of pesticide registration and regulation. And maybe it's still to continue, we have others, but before I come there, as part of the strategy to ensure food safety, when it comes to the regulation aspect, it's quite key because if the regulators are able to do what is expected, then to some extent, most of the food safety issue would have been handled. For instance, if there's a particular pesticide which may not be very good, the risk is high. And for that matter, EPA knows it and they refuse to register it in Ghana. Then you could see that already they have solved the problem of mishandling in case it comes into the system. So regulation is key when we are looking at it from a holistic point of view, how to handle food safety issues. We also have PPRSD. PPRSD deals with surveillance, pro-surveillance after the product is registered, and its use. Let me give you an example. For instance, we have fall and menace in Ghana, where the government is in charge. EPA will first have to approve and register the products that are quite good. Of course, scientists will play a role by conducting efficacy trials and so on, so forth. And based on their recommendation, the technical team from EPA will sit down and agree to register. If that product is registered, now government will purchase them through PPRD to distribute to the farmers. And PPRD have to go and ensure that farmers are using them in the right way. For example, the agro dealers, they have a basic standard they have to follow to keep this product out, to give them to farmers. All these are relevant. So this is how the system works in terms of the regulation. Some of the current challenges when it comes to regulation. Well, I would say that regulation, the regulatory bit is key. And most of them, the regulators need certain standard or state-of-the-art laboratories to be able to, because regulation is enforcement. Normally, there are certain things you need to measure. So as we go on in the discussion, I'll talk about them. There's this feeling of seemingly overlapping mandates, but really they are not, because there were some rules, I've already stated them earlier on, clear rules that Ghana Standard Authority does in Food and Drug Board, and also EPA and then PPRSD. So since some of them used to perform certain rules before, and now they have new additional rules, sometimes there's that kind of feeling. But what is important for us now is to address the issue of lack of public awareness about the distinct roles of these regulatory authorities. So sometimes when somebody needs something, he doesn't know the right place to go. And of course, the biggest plus we can take advantage is the complementary roles of these various regulatory authorities, all trying to address food safety issues. So we should look at it from that perspective and then get the best out of it. And clearly, when it comes to regulation, they are using standards, they are doing testing, and we all agree that standards changes with time, and then what you look for during testing also changes. And for that matter, there is a need to strengthen the weak collaborative link among these regulatory authorities and academia and research, so that some of the research funding, current research funding that can be used to improve on some of the pre-existing testing protocols, etc., and ways to do things can be improved. So when, even though the research and academia that are not directly involved in the regulation, but the regulatory authorities can benefit immensely from the new methods and the equipment and things like that that are in the system to enhance them, deliver their mandate to perfection. Another issue, as usual, is inadequate funds to support capacity building and initiative of workers of these regulatory authorities. And also to, once we can build their capacity in terms of knowledge and the requisite knowledge, and also even the first class state-of-the-art equipment and lab they need to operate efficiently, then that will, in the long run, help them improve their activities and the regulation, including pesticide regulation, so that we can all work towards improving safety, food safety in Ghana. The strategy for implementation on the part of the regulatory committee, one of them is Stakeholder Forum. Basically, we've already identified the key regulatory bodies in food safety, which I've already mentioned: GSA, FDA, PPRSD of MOFA, EP, etc., and others. And we have NGOs, some bodies that have interest in it. So we can have this fora and then to understand dialogue and understand the issue, see where our strengths and our weaknesses, and then try to synergize each partner's work to ensure that we get the best out of it. So that would be one thing this committee would like to do. Apart from the stakeholder engagement among the regulatory bodies, we also do a general stakeholder engagement where, of course, the target groups ultimately will be the farmers, marketers, exporters, consumer, agro dealers, and everybody on pesticide use. Because when it comes to food safety, like my colleague, Dr. Sifi said, she gave us an indication of all the contaminants, but it is very clear that pesticide is one of them that should be given a special attention. So we have that for where we all talk about how do we manage it. It is very clear that we cannot do away with using pesticide to control pests and diseases if we want to increase our food production. But clearly, we want safe food, so we have to engage them and see how best, in terms of choosing the very less toxic ones and how to use them efficiently and effectively so that we don't have residues and other problems getting into our food, and sometimes even direct poison to those who apply out of some of. And since this is a regulatory committee, there will be a need for a high-level dialogue, possibly with the food safety, the task force seeking audience with the Ministry of Trade, Industry, MOFA, and all the other relevant ministries so that possibly we can look at how we can improve upon the existing legislation to make it more encompassing, or inclusive, and people can, those agencies can deliver their best. Well, to come at the level of the end users, there are some activities we have proposed where there will be still more stakeholder engagement and brainstorming sessions. And then we will also take it to the doorsteps of farmers, marketers, consumers, trying to create awareness, sensitize them about the need for regulation. And since this committee is made up of the regulatory authorities, they might pull out some surprise visit. For example, if in the team that the FDA is there, they can take samples at a place unannounced, or probably EPA or PPI, just to let people feel that there are rules we need to comply to ensure that the right thing is done. And we have put some of the targeted areas. Basically, we start with the peri-urban vegetable production enclaves in Accra, including the wet market like Agbogbloshie and the rest, all to create awareness that, yes, there is a need to produce food, but it must be safe from pesticide, other contaminants. And it is the duty of the marketers, it is the duty of the agrochemical sellers, it is the duty of the hotel, restaurants, the supermarkets, and all of us to ensure that we maintain the standard, even including the consumer. If you are going to buy something and clearly you see danger, why should you have to risk? And we should know that when we have refused to do the right thing, the enforcement agencies, the regulatory authorities are there to put us on our toes. So in summary, this is what the regulatory authorities seek to do. Thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fenning from the University of Ghana. Pesticide use regulation and food safety. We want safe food, and we thank you for sharing the details of your implementation strategy and all the work that is yet to be done. So evidently, the work is just starting. And so we'll be coming back to you all stakeholders to include you in our consultative sessions. Last but not the least, we'll take a presentation from Mr. Tamaklo, and this is on awareness creation for food safety.
Opportunity, and then to the audience as well. We are speaking basically on awareness creation. At the end of the day, whatever work that the task force is doing, we need to create awareness about it for the general public to know what food safety risks are in our current market, what we are also doing here to ensure that we churn out very safe fruits and vegetables on the market. So since I'm talking about awareness creation, I would just want to give a brief of what food safety simply means. Food safety in the nutshell is just an assurance that food consumed will not cause any harm to whoever is consuming it. In our current context that we are looking at it today, we are talking about horticultural produce, basically fruits and vegetables. And I think this is essential because most often we consume fruits and vegetables in their raw states. We do a very minimal processing to our fruits and vegetables before we consume them. Today, if you go out and you buy an apple, for example, the next thing you do is washing and eating. So there is the need for us to ensure that that apple that you are eating, just washing it, doesn't have chemical residues or doesn't have anything that makes it unsafe for consumption. Once you consume something that is not safe, you are likely to fall ill. So we, as a committee, what we did was that we tried to identify some areas or some food safety challenge areas in our local market that we can tailor our awareness creation towards, such that the consumer is very much aware of what is in the market. And our scan in the market showed one of the very first thing has to do with the plant protection products that our farmers use. Sometimes that if I say plant protection products, I'm talking about pesticides, I'm talking about fungicide, I'm talking about herbicides and how they are used by our farmers. We want to encourage farmers to use these products in a responsible way such that whatever comes out of their farm doesn't affect the health of the consumer. If you take some, I'm trying to give a lot more explanation for the audience to really understand what we are doing. If you take any plant protection product, for example, there are a lot of indications on them. For every plant protection product, there are indications whether they are organic, whether they are synthetic, how to use them. For example, some plant protection products will tell you that when you apply this particular plant protection product, you have to wait for a minimum of 14 days before you can harvest or put it on the market. What you want to do as awareness creation committee is to educate farmers on why they would have to respect all those indications on the plant protection products that are available on the market. One of the other things we also identified on the local market again is the source of irrigation water. I think a little bit scan of the market shows that most farmers find it convenient for the purpose of convenience to plant close to drainages. And sometimes they are not doing it because they have ill intentions of hurting the consumer. They are doing it because they are not aware of the health hazards that it poses to the final consumer. Some are growing closer to the drainages because they felt since drainage water has been passing that system for a very long time, the soil around that drainage system is very fertile. Meanwhile, in reality, that soil could rather be toxic and cause them not to get the harvest that they might naturally get as a result. So we want to create awareness in that regard and encourage farmers to use water that is as clean as possible. Another thing we also identified in the market again has to do with produce handling, transportation, and packaging. Sometimes in some of the pack houses, the machineries that they use demands that they use lubricants. So we are trying to tell them, all the actors along that chain, to be responsible in how they use some of those things. For example, in the local market, there are claims in the market that people are washing some of the fruits and vegetables that we eat with Omo, some are washing them with Parasol. Is it safe enough? So we want to create awareness, go to the markets, talk to the market women, and help them do it in a responsible way. So those are some of the few challenges that we've identified. After identifying the challenges, one of the things that we did again was to identify which value chain actors along the food chain, who should we engage such that we can drive the message that we want to get out to the public home. And then we've identified that to be working with input dealers, we'll be working with farmers, we'll be working with aggregators, we'll be working with transporters, we'll be working with processors, we'll be working with distributors, we'll be working with markets, and ultimately, we'll be working with consumers. So those are the people that we are trying to work with along the entire food chain to ensure that what we are churning out on the local market is of same quality, same safety as those that we export, not where we do all the hard work getting safe fruits to the other markets and churn out anything on the local market. So after our discussion, we've also identified some key messages that we would want to put out to the public. The first thing we want to talk about is clean, keep clean. Whatever you are doing along the food chain, make sure it is clean. If you are a farmer, make sure you irrigate with water that is wholesome. If you are in the pack house, make sure the surfaces are clean with the right detergent. And then we would also encourage washing of hand along all the food chain. Another message that will also be churning out to be safe use of water and then the responsible use of plant protection products. And in as much as we are doing that, we are also going to be training farmers, input dealers, and all the others on good agronomic practices. And just for the purposes of information, in the local market, there is a local certification scheme called the Ghana Green Label that is helping farmers, helping processors, helping distributors produce according to some safety standard as developed by the Ghana Standard Authority. So it will be working along those lines to also create a system for the consumer to recognize safe foods from those that are unsafe on the local market. We'll also be talking to the pack house owners and transporters on good retail and distribution practices. We'll also be talking to consumers to keep their food at safe temperatures. How do you handle your fruits and vegetables when you are refrigerating them? Do you put them in the open? Do you have to seal them in some plastic before you put in? How should you choose fruits and vegetables when you go to the market? For example, we're also going to encourage consumers as much as possible to stay away from fruits and vegetables that are displayed directly under the sunlight. Once it's directly under the sunlight, some of the nutrients are automatically gone. We're also going to encourage them to look out for how produce are generally displayed on the market before they make a purchase decision. For example, you go to the market and somebody is selling fresh fruits and vegetables close to a drainage system or on the bare floor, there are indications that they are not safe for your consumption. In as much as we'll be putting out those information in the public, we're also making a lot of effort to educate the market women to display their produce in a more responsible manner. Finally, we'll be sharing weekly tips on how to choose safe fruits and vegetables on the local market. At this point, I'll let my colleague, Mr. Brymer, tell you about the strategies we intend to deploy and the expected outcomes.
Hello, thank you very much. I've been quite very privileged and excited to be part of this committee, both at the subcommittee level and at the committee level. Why do I say that? You know, as the president of the Vegetarian Association of Ghana, we are, like I keep on emphasizing all the time, we are end users of most of the produce that come into the market. Now, the biggest challenge that I've seen is that when people know better, they do better. And even this short period that I've been part of this food safety, I've learned so much, and I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to actually share this knowledge. And this, in terms of the strategic direction for what we are going to do, is actually kind of emphasizing or giving credence to what we've been trying to do all this time. Now, in terms of strategy, of course, we'll have to identify where our people, where the targets, those who we want to target, where are they and how to reach them. So basically, the traditional media is basically given. So we're looking at mass media, TV and radio. You know, I'm also a member of a farmers group, very active group. And somewhere a couple of months, this issue about food safety came up. And the general consensus on the platform then was that nothing is being done. They don't know, they are not hearing anything. And so I went and chipped in and said, look, there's a committee that have been set up. We've been integrated and a lot of stuff ahead. So watch this space. So this creates an opportunity to make a lot of noise for people to know that, look, efforts are being done. So traditional mass media, both TV and radio, will be an awesome platform to use. Of course, today, look at what is happening here. Technologies at play. You know, we're having this seminar online. We are reaching a much wider audience. And of course, most of the people that we should target, that is the millennial, the young folks and things, they're active in social media. So we're going to play and strategically reach the target market, target audience to create that awareness on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know, some of us from the old school, we've been forced to upgrade quickly and keep pace. So I think it's a good opportunity to do this. Of course, we're going to be playing, we're going to, like I said, a lot of communication and publicity by way of workshops and seminars. I was quite excited by what Gloria said. We will do our bit, but it's quite very important that the lessons here, we need to empower people to take ownership, because that's one of the things that we actually try to communicate in our community all the time. That look, at the end of the day, your health is your own business. You should be your primary healthcare provider. And it starts from the food on your table, the water you drink, the food you eat, the fruits, the vegetables, and all the components that you use to prepare your meal. That's where it starts for. So you must take responsibility. So I was quite excited when Gloria talked about issues about finding your produce from a trusted source. Look out for color and texture. Of course, washing fruits and vegetables and what options are available. So these are things that we're going to encourage. And like I said, you know, when people know better, they do better. So the focus and the strategy will be putting out the message such that either for the workshops and seminars, the players themselves take ownership. It should be a more of a pull factor than a push factor. That is, they are being encouraged to do this for themselves. So both the consumers themselves and all those in the value chain must take responsibility. That is quite very important. You know, I get a little bit frustrated. I go out, you know, being a vegetarian, we're always looking for a good source. And like my friend Anthony said, you drive around the city, you see beautiful vegetables and fruits being grown by water bodies. And ironically, these are coming from unwholesome water supplies, you know. And like Anthony rightly pointed out, the people don't know it's economic. They are trying to earn a living. Their mindset is like, look, we use all this thing, we use the gutter water and stuff. Of course, when you take your vegetables home, you can clean it nicely and it's good for you to eat. They do not know. We need to get that this thing information around, and that has to do with the issues about training in terms of good agronomical agronomy practices and good distribution practices. And then lastly, what are the possible outcomes for all this we are trying to do? We've said it over and over again. It has to do with creating consumer consciousness. The consumers must be aware. They must know. For example, I would expect the EPA, the regulatory authorities, all of them will expect that when you see a bad farming, agricultural, consuming, or distributive practice, you report it, you know, because, and like I keep on emphasizing, when people know better, they do better. So if they know that this is not right, and this is the regulatory bodies or the body that oversee, people will be encouraged because now they know better. So we expect that people will raise their consciousness and awareness. And as part of what we are trying to do, especially in the local market areas, once this is done successfully, people will be more encouraged, you know, knowing very well that best practices are being implemented for them to go into this local market and actually buy the produce. And even if they buy the produce and seemingly it's unwholesome, they will know what to do with that. And that also will increase patronage consumption of sage horticultural produce in the local market, which is quite very, very important, because by and large, how many of our consumers are going to find their way into the high-end shops? So we have to make sure that at least the whole value chain from the farms all the way to market to our tables, everybody is aware about food safety issues and take ownership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kola and Anthony, for sharing that with us. If people know better, they do better. How much do you know about food safety? We see a few questions or comments on here. We have other panelists who would like to add their voice, but before that, let me just go to one question that says, please, I have an issue regarding the activities of safety regulators. Example, EPA. You have an issue, that's Hammond. You have an issue regarding the activities of EPA. EPA is on the task force. Unfortunately, they are not represented here. But I think Ken made mention of what EPA does, and probably he would want to take that. We have another one from Hansen Geodata. Oh, yours is really asking Mr. Tamaklo whether they'll be interested in the My Agro 360 as part of the HGT gap template, blah, blah, blah. Hansen Geodata, we are going to charge you. We are going to send you an invoice for using our platform to market your device. Thank you. We'll link you to them and they would tell you if they need it. We have Joseph saying, good message, you know better, you do better. Thank you. Our efforts should be focused on training actors along the value chain. Thank you very much. Please keep them coming. If you want to speak, we can allow you to speak. Just use the raise hand icon and we will invite you to speak. We would fall back on the panelists to share some few more ideas. Dr. Margaret.
Everybody, I'm really glad to be part of this panel. I sincerely think that food safety is everybody's responsibility. Like the theme of last year's Food Safety Day said. So all of us along the value chain, the producer up to the consumer, has a part to play. So that if one neglects their business or neglects their function, it affects everybody else. So it's everybody's responsibility. The producer is responsible for producing quality products. The transporter is responsible for making sure that they transport in a very responsible way in a cold chain where it's required. And it's the responsibility of the consumer as well. In fact, the consumer, I think, has a lot of responsibilities because you are what you eat, like everybody says. And in this era of COVID-19, that we are being encouraged to consume more fruits and vegetables to boost our immune system. What a disaster it will be if you consume more fruits and vegetables only to get food poisoning. So as we encourage people to consume more fruits and vegetables to boost their immune system, we also have a responsibility to ensure that they are safe, because we don't want to consume more fruits and vegetables only to fall sick from consuming them. Sometimes I've heard a producer of vegetables saying, for instance, that when they use drainage water to water their produce, they get bigger produce and a bigger harvest. But obviously, they are not aware of the risk they are imposing to the consumers. Because what is the point in getting more money only to use that same money to treat yourself because you got sick? So education, like my panelist member said, is also very key, so that they are aware of the dangers they are posing to the consumer in the long run. So I would just say that everybody along the value chain has a responsibility, and it is the role and the responsibility of the task force to make sure that everybody plays their role in a responsible manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Please use the raised hand icon if you want to be allowed to speak. This is an interactive session. There are almost 75 of us on here. So please share ideas. We don't know it all. If you have any ideas on food safety, please feel free to communicate that with us, and let's keep the discussion going. We'll hear from the Group General Manager of Melcom, Francis Sam.
Thank you, Sheila. Hello, everyone. My colleagues on the panel have echoed a lot of ideas. I'd like it to add a bit to it. I'll break it into 3 different areas. So my participation on the committee level is one aspect I want to speak on. Another is as a retailer, and the other is as a consumer. So from a committee perspective, our committee looked at regulation. And regulation is very important because they serve as the gatekeepers, they serve as the monitors, they serve as awareness creation, and they hold a lot of us in the value chain through to what we should be doing. So currently, we assessed the work of the committees, of the regulators rather, and we see that they are doing their work. Obviously, a lot more can be done. So in our perspective, ensuring that they are empowered more, ensuring that the public is aware of what they should be doing, and also holding them to account is key. How we operationalize this is also very important to ensure that it's done in a fair manner, it's done in a way that is sustainable and cost-effective way. So those are the points from the committee perspective. Next, as a retailer, we tend to be the bridge between the value chain and the last bit of getting the goods actually to the consumer. So it's very important for us to ensure that what we are receiving in our retail chains are wholesome. How do we do that? We rely on the regulators, obviously, to ensure that the right people are given the licensing to bring in the goods. We also rely on those that are ensuring that the chemical inputs that are coming into the country are the ones that are wholesome and are being applied in the right manner and getting into the right hands. As retailers, we do not have the mechanisms to be testing products that actually come into our retail chain, except when we feel comfortable that all the measures in place are being adhered to. So we rely heavily on our regulators. And that's why I think the committee's work on that front is very integral to the success of this whole process. And I think Sheila or one of the panelists mentioned that buying our produces, our veggies, our fruits from the right source, from a reputable source, it goes a long way to increasing the confidence in the general public that they are getting the product that they hopefully want. Lastly, as a consumer, obviously, we have all echoed that idea that what you take in is what you are made up of, and hopefully the intent is to take in what is good for you. So the intent is good for you. As a consumer, it's good in the sense that you are doing your bit to encourage food safety. Thank you.
Very much, Francis. Now we have 3 raised hands. We'll take our first question from Frank Aka. Frank Aka, kindly unmute yourself.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Frank Aka from the University of Cape Coast, Department of Crop Science. I'm happy to be part of this group. And then, but my worry has to do with the fact that most of the people that are involved are ordinary farmers and market women who are not on social media and don't even know anything about the social media. And so looking at the task force, and then I could see that most of them are based in Accra. And so how is it going to get down there? I think about 4 years ago, we did a survey on the use of pesticide among cocoa farmers and then those who are producing vegetables along the cocoa farming. And then one thing that we realized that the abuse of pesticide is so serious. And then the farmers knew nothing about what they were doing, whether they even doing the wrong thing. And the surprising thing is that I think we got to the market, one farmer had harvested sweet pepper and then taken it to the market, and you could see the residue directly on the fruits. And we asked the farmer, do you know what you are selling? Do you know that you are rather doing the wrong thing? The residue on the fruit, you are rather going to sell it to people to die. And then he said, oh, he knew nothing about it, that those products are rather dangerous. And so we realized that I am from the Western region. The people there know nothing about some of these things. So yes, it's a good thing. And then I am urging you that you rather target those in the rural community, because the social, if we are to rely on the social media and the media in Accra, I think we are rather going to fail the people and then not really getting down to the root of the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank Aka from UCC, all the way from Cape Coast. Thank you. Your questions are well noted. The fact that the task force is based in Accra, huge challenge. We will find a way to address it. Their work is not limited to Accra, though. Their work is not limited to Accra. It's just that they are based here. And you also mentioned of pesticide abuse by farmers who have no knowledge of it. It's also one of the committee's tasks to ensure that a lot of awareness is created and people get to know. If they know, they do better. But in the case of farmers, sometimes if they are going to be whipped, they do better, because sometimes they know, but there's no big brother to crack the whip. And that comes back to our regulators. We'll be talking about that in due course. We have one from Matt that says, sometimes consumers are themselves to blame. Some retailers are willing and ready to do what is right, but consumers would opt for options that are displayed on the bare floor because they think it's affordable. So that is also a challenge. One of them mentioned consumer conscientization. So if the consumer is conscientized to the point that they know they have to do the right thing, maybe we can get there. Thank you very much. We have our next question from Kweku Asante. Kweku Asante, please unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for this workshop. I think the Agency for Health and Food Security coordinates the CSO sub-platform on SDG2 with members. You know, SDG2 focuses on ending hunger, achieving food security and improved nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture. Yeah, for the past 3 years, we've been working on vegetable value chain and horticulture value chain in general. I think this issue of food safety is very paramount in the discussions that we've held so far. And I think that we have over 100 members in the CSO platform on SDG2 who want to partner this team, because it's a national platform with CSO, you know, civil society, major in behavioral change and sensitization education. So if there's a means to partner this group, I think it would be an excellent idea. They want to take this issue up. Already we've done quite extensively on getting some works around the value chain concept. Now, if we want to zoom specifically on the food safety, I think it's also an excellent area we can take up, and we'll be communicating to them to take up some aspect as and when they have resources. But if there is a general way of partnering with a team, I think that will also be good. And the other aspect I want to find out is whether we can have a map of certified producers whose commodity can be classified as safe for publication for consumers who want to know where they are, so that we can easily share with our platform members to educate their communities to be sure to ensure that those products are patronized. I think that will also be a good idea. And on the food safety task force, I think that I don't know whether it's sealed or it's open for additional membership. I think we work with Professor Bediakon of UCC, and he's very much into food safety, and I want to recommend, if it's possible, to add on that he be included, but I don't know how that will be possible. So thank you very much for this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kweku Asante. Your submission is well received. And for the additional membership, we'll leave it for the task force. They have co-chairs that sit on the task force. So the task force will decide on whether they can take on more, but they say more meat doesn't spoil the soup. And I think UCC deserves a seat on the task force. All right. You mentioned partnering with the team. We'll share an email on the chat now. You can email us if you want us to have your email, okay? And this goes to everyone. Those who are joining and we don't have your email addresses, we are sharing my email address on the chat now. Please email us and let us have your emails and subsequent engagement. Thank you. You asked for the map of certified producers. I think I would ask the Green Label team to take that up.
Okay, yes. So on the local market, there are certified fruits and vegetables on the local market. Currently, on the Ghanaian market, we have the Green Label certified produce on the market. So Green Label basically is a local certification scheme that seeks to assist farmers produce in a responsible way. So Ghana Standard Authority has come out with standard, that's GS 1054 and GS 1074, that outlines certain protocols that farmers need to follow, such that we can guarantee what is coming from their farm is safe for consumption. So currently, that label is on the local market. You can find Green Label certified produce at MaxMart, 37 ANC Mall. You can find Green Label certified product at Palace Mall being packaged by Agritop and Eden Tweet. So Green Label certified products are on the local market. Apart from Green Label, what we're also encouraging consumers to do generally is to look for some red lights that if you come across those things, immediately just stay away. What use would it be to buy a cheap commodity and spend a lot of money healing yourself when you fall sick from it? So let's avoid picking fruits and vegetables from the ground, fruits and vegetables being traded directly under the sunlight and all the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other reactions from the panel?
I'm so passionate about encouraging people to take ownership. Now, the issue about having certified, opportunity of producers and where people can find them. Now, I keep on saying that you must take ownership. What we've done in our community, in fact, we just launched a project, a service that we call One Vegetarian, One Garden. And this was actually driven by Alberta's Agri House, who was doing a project called One Household, One Garden. You know, I don't know whether most of you remember during, I think, around 1976, during For those of us who are old enough, we remember the then head of state launching Operation Feed the Nation or Feed Yourself. Now, when Alberta launched this project, the first project Agri has got as much as about 600 households who are interested. So the truth is that people want to take ownership, and we must encourage them to do so. So for us, we took a cue from that and launched one vegetarian, one garden. And what we've decided to do is that no matter what space you have in your home, if you have a soil structure, you can make it available, we'll support you. If you don't have, there's so many things that you can use, a tie, a used item, a box or something, create a soil and grow your own vegetables. And what we've decided to do, because you can't produce everything that you need, you produce what you can, and then the community will share the produce among themselves. You give what you have and take from those that the produce that you don't have. The reason why I'm saying this is, it's quite very important. As much as you want to try and be very careful, you go out there, you don't know the produce that you are buying, how much chemical load, pesticide load, all those things. So why don't you just start by taking ownership? You'll be amazed. I have a little small garden. I have all my medicinal herbs, and now I've just added, by the initiative that I've done, basic tomatoes. In fact, the Alberta's Agri House made available 15 different seedlings, from lettuce to cucumber, all you can. So you can imagine within the community, if you have a basically about 100, you will end up getting almost all your basic fruits and vegetable needs. Now, those that you don't have, you can now go out there and source for them. So I still insist, take the initiative. We are back to the Operation Feed Yourself mode. And it's amazing. People are really, really, really interested. And I encourage you all to seek that option.
Thank you very much. And that's the president of the Vegetarian Association of Ghana, very passionately speaking. We have questions from a few others, but then there's something in the chat here. Malcolm, there's a question for you. Do you visit some of the farms that supply your produce? Briefly.
Yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
And
we'll keep the short answer and then come back if there's further clarification. So the answer is yes. We have a gentleman here, the Laserworks, talking about how essential water is to food and vegetable production, being a post-harvest technologist. Okay, so you want to know what we are doing to include safe water use. I would let Gloria answer that. Somebody is also asking the green label scheme. Is there a need? Says there's a need to develop a strategy to enforce green label certification. Certification cannot be enforced, unfortunately. So that's the simple response there. Green label should devise means of having certified produce in open markets. They are also on it. Gloria, before we have the questions from the speakers.
Yes, he's asking what we are doing to ensure that the water is safe, or water research for producers.
All right, so let me read. It says, being a post-harvest technologist, I'm aware of a lot of information on the shelves of universities, including UDS, that have tackled very simple ways to make wastewater safe. I find that has been one of the major challenges presented.
Okay, so yes, that is a big challenge, because we all do know that the urban and peri-urban farmers are using a lot of wastewater for vegetable production. However, looking at the numbers, the volumes they use is usually a challenge. But I do know that, like he's saying, UDS, I know the Netherlands Leaf, I can't remember the company, they have been working with them to try and make the wastewater safe. it's a great initiative, but the challenge we have is how to be able to produce the volumes that they need for, volumes that they need for their irrigation. Whether it's going to be sustainable, but of course we are open to hear all maybe they have something we don't know, but we spoke to some of the people, and the challenge is it's going to be very, very costly to be able to get the volumes that these vegetable producers need. That's being said, doesn't mean that there's nothing that can be done. We have to train them to be able to know how to use it appropriately, if they have to use it, and when to use it, and all that. So those are options we have here.
Thank you very much, Gloria. And there's also a question on why the Water Resources Commission is not on the task force. Again, we'll throw that back at the task force for later consideration. We'll take Henson Geodata. Please unmute yourself. Your hand has been up for a while. Henson Geodata, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on an excellent discussion. I'm grateful for this opportunity to address this issue. You see, we are talking end to end, and I was very happy to hear the issue of awareness creation, not enforcement of a green label. If you're looking at end to end, what are some of the opportunities you are going to take advantage of to be able to get to the farmer? And I'm very much interested in the farmer. I'm very much interested in the so-called the farmer who cannot read, who cannot write, put down to the state where one will say that farmer cannot actually use any tool. That farmer is not on social media. I am happy to say the interaction that we have with farmers on social media, interestingly, are the so-called the farmers who actually cannot read. And therefore, maybe academia must actually start thinking, can we reach that farmer? And if so, how? And this is, and my apologies if you read my introduction of my Agro 360 as an advert, but I had to actually come straight to the point without belittling the point. The issue is we need to be able to get through to the farmer from the farm upwards and not downwards. That is to say, the farmer must be able to use all the necessary tools to map the farm, to scan for products, to record the good agronomic practices and everything. How do we do that? This is where we have been able to develop something which I would very much hope to interact with the team, and then we take it further. My apologies if it sounds like adverts. Very, very sorry for that. It is an advert. But it is, yes, it is. It is an advert. Let's look at, please, let's look at the issue. Get the farmer on the ground in the language that the farmer can be able to get to, and the language that the Agric Extension can be able to assist, and let's take it upwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Henson. Thank you. It's well noted. We have Asenso. Your hand has been up for a while. Asenso, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. With the assistance of HortiFresh, my company has been offering plant protection services in the Blue East region. Now, I wish to state that we also become an actor within the value chain. And so maybe we could be put between the input dealer and then the farmer. Another thing is also that our work requires a lot of collaboration. I'm very happy to hear the name of, to see Dr. Fenton for the first time. I wish we can collaborate with the committee or even with Dr. Fenton, because we are developing some protocols on organic farming. We want to replace inorganic chemicals with organic chemicals. We have assembled a good number of them, and we wish Dr. Fintin could assist us to develop protocols for the trials. So maybe, Doc, I will need your contact so that we can talk further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we did put our email there, so if there are individual requests, you can route them through that. Thank you very much. We have Ken Addy. Ken, your hand has been up. Kindly unmute yourself. Ken, kindly unmute yourself. All right, whilst Ken is trying to fix his audio, there's a comment from one Galaxy A10. We don't have your name. It says, I'm happy to be part of this important meeting. Food safety is key to the survival of consumers. Please, I think there's a need for the task force to have a stakeholder meeting with regulatory agencies, and they mentioned PPRS, the FDA, GSA, EPA, to review their laws and make sure food safety issues are giving enforcement to the letter. Thank you, Galax. We don't know when you joined, but it was one of the presenters who mentioned it. There is going to be stakeholder dialogue and discussions with regulators. In one of the presentations, they mentioned that their work seems to overlap, and so it will be nice for them to come together and really draw the lines and work well. Ken, you're on. Please unmute yourself, Ken, unless he's not hearing us. All right, I'll come back.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, Sheila.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, all right. Great, you making some giant strides into food safety, especially with our vegetables and fruits. As I listened to the available gentleman, I realized he made mention of shops which are actually appreciated by the elites within the country at the moment. We should really hit hard at where the majority of all of us get to. Surprisingly, you might get there, you see, buy the vegetables and fruits from the agribusies and whatever you can name them. We should to produce. When you produce with all the good things we are talking about, you have value for them. Then there should be concessions created for our farmers, especially for the supermarkets, those who import vegetables into the system. Regulatory bodies should come in to create all the concessions. If it's a 50-50 thing, 30-70, whatever it is, to encourage our farmers to do more. As I talk to you now, there are collaborations with the agencies. I mean, let's call it with our plant protection body in the country at the moment for specific things they want to be designed for production of certain foods, especially mango, making sure they get into the European Union without anything of to do with the food supply. We should be looking at all these things and expand our efforts to really collaborate to get this.
Okay, Ken, we are having problems hearing you. So if you can type in the chat box, that will be beneficial to everyone. Kindly type in the chat box.
Hello?
To benefit all of us.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you. We'll take a few words from Dr. Margaret.
Hello. Yeah. The little I heard of Ken's submission, he mentioned the fact that you go to these supermarkets and still find produce or products which are not so good or of a good quality. And I will reiterate that you are responsible for what you eat. So, and there are very simple things you can do to check for quality. Like Gloria mentioned in her presentation, you can use, excuse me to say, your senses. Look at the color, feel the texture, aroma. I mean, these change, and these are indicators of quality. So this is something you should do when you go to buy. And you see, the suppliers, when they realize that people are not buying the bad products, it will send a signal. Because if you are supplying bad products and nobody is buying and you are losing, next time, I'm sure you will think twice. You would go for it. So we, the consumers, should not buy the bad products because they are cheaper. Spend a bit more and buy and go for good quality products. And then it will send a signal to the suppliers that my products are not good, they are of a bad quality and they are not buying and I'm losing. So I have to do something about it. So we, the consumers, should be responsible and not go for bad products because they are cheaper. If we stop buying the bad products, they will stop supplying the bad products. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Margaret.
Just a little more to add. I think that we all should try. I realize that when it comes to food safety, we are looking at a whole value chain. So if the farmer starts off and does it right, but the retailer does it wrong, we actually don't end up with a safe produce. So I think that we all are playing a part in this challenge, trying to make sure that food safety is, we do the right thing and we consume safe food. So everyone has a part to play. And I think that we all should focus on the little we can do. And together we will all make sure that the food safety system in Ghana is in place and we are all able to consume safe food and we all live healthy lives. So that's all I want to add, that everybody has a part to play and we should make sure that we are all playing our little part to ensure that there's safe food supply in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. We are all equal stakeholders, Ken.
Yeah, thank you. I think quite a good number of our callers talk about bringing on board a new representation to the task force. What I would like to say is that the task force is just a representation for the nation, and like the regulatory, we mentioned of Stakeholder Forum. So I will encourage people to use the chat box to give us the links of all the relevant authorities and people, individual organizations that can play a role. So during our stakeholder consultation and the discussions, we invite some of them and they all share. So we are just representing, but invariably, all of us as a role to play and make sure it gets to the groundwork where our farmers will benefit. But what I also like to say, these days, it was the older days that we used to say that our farmers cannot read and write. Now it has changed. Even I am a farmer. I have farm. Yes, so farming has become something that everybody could be part. So let's design it in such a way that irrespective of whether your level of education, your status, social status, or whatever, if the structures are working, then we can all get the information across and get the best out of it. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to add, what I would like to say here, especially as retail is concerned, is that we also encourage most of the retailers who receive produce all over Ghana to ensure that some of the people who are supplying their produce to those retail outlets have their pack houses looked at by the Ghana Standard Authority. There is now very good collaboration between us and Ghana Standard Authority such that they're encouraging pack houses to ensure produce that they are receiving from some farms are coming from the green label. I think it's one of the systems to ensure that the right things are done in the pack house. Just to give a quick scenario about a question that was earlier asked about wastewater. There was one farm in the north that was going through green label certification. And as part of the certification processes, they were supposed to have their water tested by CSIR. When that water was tested, they realized that the water was contaminated. They found out that water has E. coli, that water has coliform, that water also has some fecal matter. So what do we have to do to help such a smallholder farmer go through the green label certification? One of the things that we realized the farmer was deploying on the farm was that they were using the sprinkling system. So once the water is contaminated and you are sprinkling it, it's making direct contact with the fruits and vegetables. So that farmer was advised to redo the irrigation system to drip, where the water goes directly to the roots of the plant without touching the fresh fruits and vegetables. So there are options that people are adopting. If the person who asks the question has any other to share, they can also let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a few comments here coming in. Kenneth did summarize his submission. He said concessions should be created for our farmers to be competitive in the supermarkets, those who import. And then also Emmanuel says consumer awareness creation is very important and it will empower them to make the right choices. Once the farmers realize consumers have choices, they will do the right thing. Florence says the use of census is what is misleading consumers. We are not very sure what the census means, but then she continues to say, looking for huge fruits and vegetables come at a cost. Additives and other artificial inputs are deployed to deceive the eye. That I don't think necessarily means that bigger fruits are not safe. Also, GSA should be made more accessible to our farmers to aid fight the MRL problem. GSA should be made more accessible. So that we're also pushing that back to the task force. And the speaker who promotes touching at vegetable and fruit sales points should be discouraged, especially at this point in times of COVID. Thank you very much for reminding us. It's still the COVID season, so we have to be careful. And lastly, George is thanking us for the opportunity. If the consumer refuses to buy unwholesome, surely the producer will do the rest. All right, thank you. Francis.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. So I'll try and tackle a few points raised regarding the retail sector because I'm the only person from that sector on the panel. First of all, with regards to concessions, I think that's a regulatory matter that has to be a government policy initiative. Currently, those that deal or import produce incur cost. So if we were to look at it from that perspective, the local farmers should be more competitive because they are not incurring the shipping costs, the VAT or import cost associated with importing those goods. And as a retailer, we always seek to encourage local participation. As you know, Malcolm was one of the first retailers to bring in the Made in Ghana celebrations in October. I think it happens in October. So we are in that month as of now, and we encourage the same in the grocery and produce sector. However, the truth is we don't have enough supply locally to meet demand. So there's a gap in the market, and then there are certain type of goods or produces that have to be imported because we cannot grow them in our climates. there again, the regulators are the ones that ensure that the imported items are wholesome and have gone through the right regulatory checks before they are admitted into the country. I earlier mentioned that when dealing with our local farmers, and before we register them on, we know where they are producing their goods at. We typically use middlemen as distributors, but then we know the sourcing. So in terms of creating concessions and other incentives for our local farmers, we encourage that, but it's also a policy matter that has to be looked at from the umbrella view of policy making, much higher than the discussion point that we are having. I'll speak a little bit as a consumer who, and I think my colleagues on the panel mentioned this. I believe that if I walked into any retail establishment and I found unwholesome food, as a consumer, it's my duty to point it out to them that there is something wrong with what is being sold to the public. And I encourage all of you to do so, because until we get to that level of awareness and participation, we cannot hold people to account. We at Melcom will not intentionally put out unwholesome food to be sold, because obviously the shelves are replenished daily in most stores, but there could be some neglect from a worker that might cause something to be on shelf, which shouldn't be on shelf. So as a consumer, I encourage all of us to be vigilant in that aspect and speak up if we find such things. Not that you are being a bad citizen. Actually, you are encouraging the right thing to be done. So a little bit about that, and I think this happens more in the unorganized market more than the established market, because the established market or the hypermarkets have a reputation to uphold. There was one last point that was made about retail that had skipped my mind. If Sheila can remind me, or anybody can remind me, I can speak to it. But these are the two that came to mind. Thank you.
Sam, Francis, yeah. Kola. You have anything? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We don't have any questions coming in. We don't see any comments flowing. Okay, I think we have one here. If irrigation water contains heavy metals like lead, it can easily be absorbed by plants, even if not discharged directly on crops. Thank you very much, Galaxy A10, for educating us. We have Nat from the bread basket. There is a need for HortiFresh and the task force to impress upon EPA to play a critical role in monitoring and regulating the use of unwholesome wastewater for irrigating vegetables. Okay, so that's a charge to EPA, but luckily they have the help of the task force, and so they'll be doing this together to crack the whip, encourage, educate, and create awareness. At this point, we want to, all right, we have one more. We are trying to close, our time is up. Messages on food safety must be developed also in our local dialects too, so that goes to the awareness creation segment. We want to thank you all very much for joining in. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for your time. We also want to acknowledge our panelists, Dr. Gloria Silfi, University of Ghana, Mr. Francis Sam, Melcom, Ghana Limited, Dr. Ken Fenning, also University of Ghana, Dr. Mary Margaret Owusu, Food Research Institute, Dr. Kola, Vegetarian Association of Ghana, and Anthony Tamaklo, the Ghana Green Label Certification Scheme. And of course, the HortiFresh team, thank you. I see Irene and Yup joining from elsewhere, Salome, Musa, all of you, thank you very much. We also have our embassy staff also showing up, Marian and Abdul, thanks for joining. Thank you all for joining. Please stay glued to our social media handles and our website. We shared our email address. Kindly send us your email address if you're not on our mailing list, and we'll be happy to connect with you. Thank you very much.